Nick Maravette's Locked On Cyclones. Deion Sanders is back. He's not going to the Cowboys. He's not going to the Raiders. He's not going to the NFL. He is going to stay at Colorado. He said this across the offseason. Look, I would take interviews too. I get it. I would leverage myself as well. We've heard there have been arguments between him and the athletic director over money disputes, NIL, staff contracts, but the dust has seemingly settled, and Deion remains in Boulder. Does that worry you? Do you feel like, Colorado is now the big dog to fend with the big dog to fend against in 2025?
Well, it doesn't necessarily concern me more because Deion's been there for the last few years. I would say that I think they're better with than without Deion. I think he does a great job of cultivating a culture there and obviously progressing players and developing them into better players. But I would say if I'm more concerned now than I was last year, the answer would be simply no. I don't think that team got better by retaining. I think they avoided getting worse, which is, a good thing, but I don't think that scares me anymore.
Are they a front runner for you? Many people are not talking about Colorado. They're not in a lot of these way too early top 25s. Should they be a front runner for Big 12 champions next season?
I don't see it. No Travis Hunter, no Shedeur, and obviously you lose a ton more. They did bring in the number one quarterback. I believe it was in this year's class. But is he going to see the field right away? I don't know exactly what that looks like yet. I'm sure nobody in Colorado does either. And to that point, I would say, prove it. I want to see it on the field. I want to see it done. As it stands right now, I am not necessarily overly concerned about Colorado. Obviously, we'll talk about the third segment, who we think will be going to the Big 12 championship game. But I need to see more. And right now, it feels like it's still kind of right in that honeymoon phase of when he got there and everything was gleam and glamour. And they got a lot of help from everybody around them. But then you lose to BYU in the, I don't remember what bowl that was at. The
Alamo Bowl. Come on.
Alamo. I wanted to go Alamo, but I didn't want to get it wrong. And so maybe we're starting to see the decline. I don't know, but I am not personally afraid of Colorado at all.
I do think there's a lot of respect there when it comes to having Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter play in that bowl game. Their involvement was massive for the conference, showcasing that bowls still matter to the Big 12. They matter to Deion. They matter to Colorado. The figurehead he is, they tripled up the next most watched team in the Big 12. Their viewership is stunning. Deion Sanders has brought a brand new economy to Boulder. And again, the TV views are piling in. The money is piling in for the conference and for Colorado individually. For an Iowa State, do you like that? Like, I would never consider Ames to be the hub of the paparazzi. Do you like having the belle of the ball being Deion Sanders in Boulder, Colorado in the Big 12?
Before I get to that, I'll say them playing the Stars in the Alamo Bowl, along with obviously Iowa State. No Higgins, never really got a great explanation on that, but Noel, Hansen, Rocco Becht, Miami played, obviously Cam Ward through the first half. Not really sure why that went the way that it did, but either way, I do like the transition and the kind of trend towards playing players in bowl games. I'm a huge fan of that, and I do appreciate, obviously, anyone in the Big 12 kind of going with that, as Iowa State certainly did in the Pop-Tart Bowl. Now, that being said, as far as the market, as far as the money, as far as the attention on the Big 12, that is what I am very appreciative of Deion coming back to Colorado for. You're just not going to get the same amount of eyes if he's not in the Big 12, and that plays into so many different things. Obviously, as you mentioned, the economy that Colorado essentially sparked by bringing him in, but also how much is it worth now if Iowa State beats Colorado? How much would it be worth if Iowa State were to beat Colorado with Joe Schmo coaching, right? They're automatically more eyes on the game. Iowa State gets seen beating Colorado by more people. It's worth more. So to directly affect Iowa State, if you beat Colorado in that instance, it's worth more. And then just what he's doing for the whole conference and as far as eyes and money, it can't be unseen, right? Like, this guy is changing the game. And so definitely a big fan of him sticking around for those reasons.
Is there a concern on the field that not just this next season, but in the future, Deion's status can create a powerhouse in the Big 12, could create a dynasty? Because like you said, they lose a lot. He's got to prove a lot. I'm not saying he won't. There's a massive opportunity for Deion to prove that he can coach without his sons or without Travis Hunter being on his roster. If he's able to prove that, is there a world in which his status, his control of the portal, his control of NIL creates a juggernaut in Colorado? Does that possible scenario worry you?
It's certainly a possible scenario. Actually, I think it's more than plausible if you want to go Mythbusters style. I don't know if it necessarily concerns me yet, just because we have yet to see it. But it is very much on the table. And if one guy's pulling, that leaves the rest of the tray a little bit less full, right? Think of a charcuterie board. There, one guy takes all the Colby Jack, you got to settle for Swiss. I don't love that play. That being said, NIL, the transfer portal, all of that we've seen flatten the playing field. So I don't know how easy it would be for him to build a Nick Saban type dynasty. If anyone could do it, I'd put my trust in Deion. But especially now with the JUCO ruling, which is still going through legislation and whatnot, if that flattens it out even more, I honestly don't know how you can build any sort of dynasty at this time. We'll see, obviously, with NIL going through phases and changes and whatnot, if it could land that way. But if anyone could, it's Deion. As it stands right now, I am under the camp that it's going to be flat. It's pretty level playing field. You can go out and get whoever you need to.
Who do you think next season we could count on being better than Colorado? Are there teams that immediately come to mind? You think, okay, there's no way they would compete. The Buffs would compete with X.
Well, Iowa State, obviously. I mean, why would you have me on if I'm not going to answer that way? BYU up there as well. Arizona State, I'll be very interested to see what they can do without Scadaboo. And for those of you who remember the Big 12 Championship preview, I did learn his name very loud and clear. Scadaboo Dog. Outside of that, I'd love to see maybe Oklahoma State make some noise. There's always one team, right, that's just going to come out of nowhere, like Arizona State. Preview. Nobody had them in the Big 12 Championship. Is saying Oklahoma State gonna get me fired? Potentially. It's a ridiculous take, but somebody's gonna have to step up. It happens every year. College football, being college football, picking the absolute worst team in the conference seems a little bit basic, but it'd be pretty crazy if it happens.
Yeah, Arizona State proved that, and maybe kind of to what you alluded to, that dynasties are possibly a thing of the past, and that the worst team in your conference could elevate itself to win the league, whether it's the Big 12 or a school like South Carolina in the SEC that so many counted out, and then they wanted them in the college football playoff, or Indiana in the Big 10. So many counted them out. Then they're in the college football playoff. It isn't just reserved for the Big 12. Nick, before we move on to a Big 12 championship prediction between BYU and Iowa State, overall, when you see the news that Deion Sanders is returning to Colorado, what emotions does that evoke for a Big 12 fan like yourself?
As a Big 12 fan, definitely hyped. I think it's just really cool the way that he goes, conducts his business. Certainly in the headlines, it gets eyes on the Big 12. As someone who's kind of covering the Cyclones, I think it's a great thing. I think that, as we kind of mentioned, just the amount of eyes that would be on the Cyclones in a game against Colorado is more with Deion there. I definitely would have loved to see him go to the NFL and somehow finagle a way to get both his sons on the same team. So that missing is, that would have been pure cinema. But outside of that, I think there's a lot of upside to him sticking around in Colorado. Hopefully the gold prime shades stick around so I can find my hands on one of those. Those are really cool. I think it's overall a really positive thing, though. And if you want to play the hater card, you can. But look at what he's done. You just can't deny what he's done up until this point. And yes, I've said, gonna have to prove him forward, but what he's done is simply undeniable.
Coming up, who will play in the Big 12 Championship? This is Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, two teams, endless possibilities, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, Saquon Barkley, calling the MVP, Saquon Barkley, or even betting on the coin toss, tails, FanDuel makes it easy to get on the action with live betting all game long. You can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. Live betting feature allows you to stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is easy to navigate. Plus, know you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets at the Super Bowl. Yeah, it's the icing on the cake. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started at $5 bet. And if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59.